Shaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Kristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityaname Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvasesha Shanyavadi Asyacha Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paschachadeshatani Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Sri Gauranitai ki, Shri Sri Harinama Sankirtan ki, Go Premanande, all glorious to the assembled devotees, all glorious to Sri Guru Rango Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Well, welcome everybody. Hare Krishna. This evening we'll be carrying on with Lord Kapila Dev's teachings to his mother Devahuti from the third canto, but we'll start with Jai Radha Madhava. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Janaballabha Girivardhari, Gopi Janaballabha Girivardhari, Yasodhanandana Rajajanarandana, Yasodhanandana Rajajanarandana, Yasodhanandana Rajajanarandana, Yamuna Tira Anachari, Yamuna Tira Anachari, Yamuna Tira Anachari, Yamuna Tira Anachari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Janaballabha Girivardhari, Gopi Janaballabha Girivardhari, Gopi Janaballabha Girivardhari, Gopi Janaballabha Yasodanandana Rajajanandana
Yasodanandana Rajajanandana
Yasodanandana Rajajanandana
Yasodanandana Rajajanandana
Yamona Tira
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamona Tira
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Madhava Kunja Vihari
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Gaur Premanandi Jaya Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivajakacharya Shkata Satisli AC Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Ananta Kota Vaishnavindaki Namacharya Shladidasa Thakur Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Ganga Maya Ki Jamuna Maya Ki Tulasi Deva Ki Bhakti Deva Ki Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Lord Chaitanya's Harinam Sankirtan Ki Brihat Madanga Ki Srila Prabhupada Ki Shri Gaurnitai Ki Harinam Sankirtanam Ki Brihat Madanga Ki Srila Prabhupada Ki Go Premanandi, all glorious to the assembled devotees, all glorious to the assembled devotees, all glorious to the assembled devotees, all glorious to Sri Guru and Garanga, all glorious to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namani Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nivasesha Shanyavari Paschatradesha Tarni. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayat Nasta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamastoke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. Hare Krishna. This evening we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, Text 20. If Vasikananda Prabhu, if we can put the verse up, if possible. Thank you. We've heard the last few weeks about the history, a little bit of the appearance of Lord Kapila, about the relationship between Kardama Muni and his wife, Devahuti, and how Kardama Muni left home, and the Lord had appeared as his son, Kapila Dev, and how Devahuti was now taking instructions. She submitted herself to her son to relieve her of the, let's say, bondage in this material world. She would accepted him as her spiritual master to sever the attachments, the bondage in this world, to release her from her entanglements. And now Lord Kapila Dev has been speaking. We've heard him introduce the process of how perfection, of how to get released from this world through the process of yoga, accompanied with knowledge and detachment. And now he's coming to the essence of this instruction, how to achieve that perfection. Knowledge is one thing, how to utilize that knowledge and how for that knowledge to become realized. And in this verse, which we mentioned briefly last week, or whenever it was, last Saturday, we did this verse also, but only partially, because it's the main subject. It's the foundation, you could say, of the process of devotional service, although it's not directly one of the limbs, but it's the actual, or let's say it's one of the limbs, it's not one of the actual practices, but the association of devotees is the foundation from which all forms of devotional service can grow. It's like soil, we have to have good soil for the seeds to grow. So whatever seed of bhakti may be there, the association of devotees facilitates its growth. It's like very fertile soil. And we all know the soil is not very fertile. The seed will not grow very well. Maybe we'll get weeds instead. So the association of devotees is like, again, there are different types of devotees. There are devotees who are very more advanced than we are, mostly. And there may be persons who are just very new coming in. And there may be other persons who are actually, let's say, not, they may have some relationship with devotee, but they're in the mode of, later in this section, Lord Kapila Dev will talk about devotional service in the mode of goodness, devotional service in the mode of passion, devotional service in the mode of ignorance. So some people's devotional service is very much covered by ignorance, and in fact, devotional service becomes almost like a shadow, and there's hardly any real substance there at all. And mostly it's a material substance which appears through the veneer, the shape of devotion, but it's not really devotional service. Such association may divert our attention away from the objective goal. It may actually diminish or reduce our progress in spiritual life. So association with devotees is also, there's also a degree of quality involved as well. It's not just a blanket statement which covers anything and everybody who has any kind of, let's say, veneer of Krishna consciousness, because there's still something there, but it's very shallow. And you know, if you jump into a very shallow body of water, we tend to hit our head or get injured or whatever it may be. So we've got to be a little careful also in that regard. In principle, the association of devotees is the foundation. It is the fertile soil in which all forms of, or all aspects of devotional service, whatever seed we have, can grow and flourish in the right. The seed will grow and flourish as long as the soil is moist or whatever it's meant to be, and is fertile, and we avoid the weeds and so on our cultivation of the plant. So this is the process of devotional service founded on this. So another good example which is sometimes given is that of a lotus flower. We don't have lotuses growing wildly in many of the countries of the world, but in tropical countries, lotuses grow in many ponds, and there are certain requirements for the lotus to grow. Some lotuses blossom in the day and some at night. Let's take the day blossoming lotus, what is pink one, whatever, blossoms in the day. So when the sun rises, the lotus blossoms. So the lotus also, of course, must be attached to the ground. If it's severed, it will die. It has to be attached to the ground. So the sun is likened to Krishna. In the presence of Krishna, the lotus blossoms. The lotus also has to be attached to the ground. In other words, to the parampara, it has to be connected to the parampara disciplic succession. But that's not enough. There must be water. It must be surrounded by water, and the water represents sadhu sangha, the association of devotees. All three factors must be there. And the association of the Vaishnavas, the devotees, and of course by the direction of the spiritual master, also guidance is given to remove any unnecessary impediments on the path, or any weeds or dangerous things. The warning or the direction is given there. So all three are required: Guru, Shastra, and also Krishna, and he manifests in the form of Shastra also. So all these factors are required for our tender creeper of devotion to mature and to release us from the entanglement in this material. So tonight's verse, we'll now read it together, please. Prasangam ajaram pasham Atmana kavayo viduhu
Atmana kavado vidu
Seva sarushu krito
Saiva sukrito
Mokshadwaram apavita.
Mokshataram apavrita
Sangam ajaram pasham.
Dasanga madaram pasha
Atmana kavayo viduhu.
Atmana kavayo kivu
Saiva sarushu pito.
Sareva sadhushu sito
Mokshadwaram apavitam.
Mokshataram apavrita
Prasangam,
Sangam
attachment. Ajaram,
Ajaram
strong.
Strong
Pasham, entanglement. Atmanaha, of the soul. Kavayo, learned men. Viduhu, no. Saha eva, that same. Sarushu, to the devotees. Kritaha, applied. Mokshadwaram, the door of liberation. Apavritam, open. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement of the spirit soul. But when that same attachment is applied to the self-realized devotees, it opens the door of liberation. And last week we read a little bit of the purport. Some of you may or may not have been with us. So I'll read it again. To hear a good thing over and over is very good. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here it is clearly stated that attachment, for one thing, is the cause of bondage in conditioned life. And the same attachment, when applied to something else, opens the door of liberation. Attachment for material things is called material consciousness. An attachment for Krishna or his devotee is called Krishna consciousness. Consciousness is therefore the platform of attachment. It is clearly stated here that when we simply purify the consciousness from material consciousness to Krishna consciousness, we attain liberation. An important point Prabhupada mentions here, attachment, how consciousness rather is therefore the platform of attachment. It's not the mind. The mind may come up with so many different ideas or thoughts, pictures. There's a consciousness which is attached or detached. The mind is just like, you could say, like a television screen, more or less. Certainly the pictures and the desires, etc., which may be seen on the plane of the mind are a result of our past attachments or our past activities, our past sojourn in this world. But it's the spirit soul who is attached or not attached. We don't have to be attached to what we see in our mind. We don't have to identify with it. And that's the platform of the consciousness. Attachment is on the platform of the consciousness, as we're reading here. Consciousness is therefore the platform of attachment. Despite the statement that one should give up attachment, desirelessness is not possible for a living entity. A living entity by constitution has the propensity to be attached to something. We see that if someone has no object of attachment, if he has no children, then he transfers his attachment to cats and dogs. This indicates that the propensity for attachment cannot be stopped. It must be utilized for the best purpose. Our attachment for material things perpetuates our conditional state, but the same attachment, when transferred to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or as devotee, is the source of liberation. We all know when we say, oh, Prabhu, I'm too attached. We're all very attached to certain things, gross and subtle. Everyone in the world, everyone in the universe is so attached. So many, especially family life, sex life, so many attachments which are very strong, keeping us bound up in this world. We may be attached to money, we may be attached to name and fame, we may be attached to everything, our body, so many things we're attached to in this world. Because it's the nature of the soul, and And you think the consciousness of the soul is this platform where all these attachments are experienced, you could say. By coming in contact with various objects, we become attached. They can be subtle or gross objects. It's on the platform of attachment, the soul kind of like, what do we say, radar or something. It's scanning everything and then becomes attached to certain things, depending on how we relate to that particular object. We become attached or detached. Here it's recommended that attachment should be transferred to the self-realized devotees, the sadhus. And who is a sadhu? Who is a sadhu? A sadhu is not just an ordinary man with a saffron robe or a long beard. Maybe sometimes we see it, especially in India, sometimes everyone with a long robe, orange robe, and long beard, sadhu. Well, maybe, but that's not the main qualification of a sadhu. A sadhu is described in Bhagavad Gita as one who unflinchingly engages in devotional service, even though one is found not to be following the strict rules and regulations of devotional service. If one simply has unflinching faith in Krishna, the Supreme Person, he's understood to be a sadhu. So that's the main qualification, one's unflinching faith in Krishna, come what may. Due to conditional life, sometimes one may act in a way which is not, let's say, considered to be like that of a sadhu. Sometimes due to our past condition or present circumstances. But the primary mood of such a person, of such sadhu, is their unflinching devotion to Krishna. Nothing will stop that unflinching devotion. This verse from the Bhagavad Gita, in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which we're not going to discuss it tonight, we'll discuss it on another occasion when we're looking at the qualities of a sadhu. Tonight's verse is more or less introduction to this subject matter of the importance of association with devotees, or let's say the importance of association in general. A sadhu is a strict follower of devotional service. It is recommended here that if one at all wants to realize Brahman or spiritual perfection, his attachment should be transferred to the sadhu or devotee. Lord Chaitanya also confirmed this, lava matra sadhu sangi sarvasiddhi hoy. Simply by a moment's association with the sadhu, one can attain perfection. Go to the book now. Mahatma is a synonym of sadhu. It is said that the service to a Mahatma or elevated devotee of the Lord is Dwara Mahur Vimukte, the royal road of liberation. Mahat Sevan Dwara Mahur Vimukte Tamo Dwaram Yoshitam Sangi Sangha. A very famous verse is, as you can see, 5th canto, spoken by Lord Rishabdev to his sons, including Bharat, which is the eldest son of Maharaj Rishabh. And he's explaining here, we'll read the verse in a minute. Okay, well, leave it for now. Rendering service to the materialists has the opposite effect. If anyone offers service to a gross materialist or a person engaged only in sense enjoyment, then by association with such a person, the door to hell is opened. Because there are different people in different modes of material nature. But for a devotee, heaven or hell in this material world is all the same. Even impersonal liberation to a devotee is like hell. Anywhere without devotion to Krishna, without the opportunity or without the consciousness of serving Krishna is like a hellish place, a horrible place. So even if it's heaven, if there's no devotees there, there's no devotion, there's no love for Krishna there, for a devotee that's hellish. Brahman is the most hellish because there's literally no chance at the level of Brahman, Brahmajyoti, of service. Everything is homogeneous. There's no variation there. So for devotee, the Brahmajyoti is the worst stage, worse than even hell. At least there's a chance to preach, there's a chance to somehow or another be conscious of Krishna. The same principle is confirmed here. Attachment to a devotee is attachment to the service of the Lord. Because if one associates with a sadhu, the result will be that the sadhu will teach him how to become a devotee, a worshipper and a sincere servant of the Lord. This, you could say, in a nutshell, is the process of bhakti, that somehow or another, by good fortune, we get the opportunity to come in contact with Krishna consciousness. And that little contact gives us the opportunity, maybe a tiny little bit of faith develops, giving us the opportunity to associate with a sadhu, saintly person. They may go simultaneously, that the sadhu actually gives us that little drop of good fortune, and we may be able to fortunately hear from them. And when one hears from a sadhu, then the sadhu will give us, he's not just going to entertain us, just praise us for being what we are. He's going to give us directions to help release us from our bondage in this world. And if our faith is sufficient, we will begin to put those little instructions into practice. And that's the good, these are the gifts of the sadhu. He gives us this opportunity to engage in devotional service and get free from our bondage and free from fear and so on and so forth. Then they will teach us how to become a devotee, a worshipper, and a sincere servant of the Lord. These are the gifts of the sadhu. If we want to associate with the sadhu, we cannot expect him to give us instructions on how to improve our material condition. It's not the position to approach a sadhu and say, "Hi, how's it going then? Nice day. How's your wife? What do you think of the news?" This is not the business purpose for approaching a sadhu. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that maybe a sadhu will answer one or two questions just for making a contact, but he's not there as that kind of to entertain us or just somebody to socialize with. The business of the sadhu is to cut the knots of their attachment in this world. And sometimes he has to use strong words. All spiritual words in one sense are strong because it's Shastra. We were saying last night, Shastras. We have Shastra, which is like material weapons. Shastra is transcendental, sound, vibration, spiritual weapons, we could say. To cut the knot, yada nijas neakta kamragvanti nibandhanam, chindanti kovadas tasya kona kriyat kataratin. To cut the binding knot of material reactionary work. And the sadhus, they sometimes speak strong words to cut that knot. And that is the meaning. It's not just to get some blessing from a sadhu so that we can have nice babies or become rich in our business or something like that. No, it's to get free of our material entanglement. That is the result. And how you see, who give us instructions how to cut the knot of contamination and material attraction, and how to elevate ourselves in devotional service. That is the result of associating with a sadhu. Kapila Muni first of all instructs that the path of liberation begins with such association. There's lines going in there, I can see. Maybe Rasikananda is highlighting certain lines there. It's quite an important statement for all of us to take into account. We're wasting our time actually approaching a saintly person or guru, sadhu, whatever, and asking mundane questions. First, there's a fine line between mundane questions and questions which are related to devotional service in terms of situations in our life which we're not able to deal with, and thus it appears to us that they're impeding our devotional progress. That's a fine line, but in principle we should not unnecessarily, that's for sure, indulge in social grumya. It's called grumya kata with a sadhu. It's not the business of a devotee at all. So it's pretty important. And we can go back to the picture now, the general picture, Asika. There we go. So it's pretty important that we understand what is a sadhu. Well, we'll hear about that, Krishna willing, in the next few sessions. The next few verses particularly deal with the characteristic of a sadhu. And tonight we just, as I say, in general, the importance of association is the subject matter tonight, and the effects of association. So this is called sambandha, to know. Any subject matter, it's important to have some knowledge of what we're talking about, what the qualities of a doctor are before anyone can claim to be a doctor. We should know what the characteristics are. Anyone can say, I'm a guru, sadhu, this, that, the other, but it's important to have some knowledge of what the characteristics of a guru or sadhu are. That's called sambandha. So that we'll be hearing about in the next few days, Krishna willing. So tonight we're going to hear primarily from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna willing. But before we do that, we're going to look at a few statements. As I mentioned earlier, we'll look at this statement from Lord Rishabdev from the 5th canto. If you want to tune in, I'm going out of order. What's happening? 5th canto. 552. It's a famous verse. Lord Rishabdev's teachings. I'm not going to read the whole verse. It sounds pretty good. Mahat sevam dwaram hor vimukte tamo dwaram yoshitam sangi sangam. And this basically means that one can attain the path of liberation from material bondage only by rendering service to highly advanced spiritual personalities. And the second part of that goes, for those who are not interested, first of all, in the association of such highly advanced spiritual personalities, one will be engaged in rendering service to Krishna, rendering service to the Mahatmas, which ultimately is rendering service to Krishna. And for those who are not interested in that, and those activities, who associate with people or persons who are very fond of sex life, if you're men attached to women, the path to hell is wide open. A very wide open path, an easy path to go down, hard path to come out of. The path of devotion service may be seeming a little narrower. But in the association of devotees, it becomes very easy to cross over. As we've quoted many times, this material ocean is an ocean of great danger. But it becomes reduced to like the size of the water in a calf's hoof print. Very easy to cross over if we take shelter of the Supreme Lord, which means taking shelter of the devotees of the Lord. Without taking shelter of the Narottam Das Thakur, Charya Vaishnava Seva Nishtaya Vaishakeva, he describes how nobody can go back to Godhead without serving the Vaishnavas associated with devotees. Not possible. It's not like, there's some material qualification or by our endeavor alone. It's only by the mercy of the Vaishnavas we can go back to Godhead. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, the human body is like a junction, like on train lines. You get junctions. At junctions, you can change trains and go in different directions, etc. One may either take the path of liberation or the path leading to a hellish condition. Within the hell, that means a material path. How one can take these paths is described herein. On the path of liberation, one associates with Mahatmas. On the path of bondage, one associates with those attached to sense gratification and women, which can be extended to mean any kind of, bodily identification, family life, children, and so on and so forth become extremely attached. And that keeps us bound up in this material world. And as Prabhupada said in the previous purport, if one doesn't have any family members, one becomes attached to a dog or a cat or something like that. This is the situation in this material world, how important association is in our progress in spiritual life, or even in the material world to become successful in any activity. Generally, we associate with successful people in that activity. Whether it's knowledge, whether it's sport, whether it's music, whatever, we get trained by persons who are expert. We associate with them and we develop those characteristics like that. So similarly, especially in devotional service, the association of devotees. If somebody doesn't have something, they can't give it to us. So we have to have a little bit of Sambandha Gyan to know who to associate with more advanced devotees who can help us in our devotional service, because it is the association of devotees which evokes the rising of the Bhakti Creeper within our hearts. Now, there's a very interesting book. This book is called the Narada Bhakti Sutra. Now, this book is not translated by, I think the first few verses may have been translated by Srila Prabhupada. I'm not sure, but I think they were. Yeah, the first few verses were translated by Prabhupada, but not the whole book. But I'll read some of the verses from this book. This is a book called Narada Bhakti Sutra, which is, of course, originates from Narada Muni. Sutra means like in a nutshell, like essence of philosophy. Like we have Vedanta Sutra, which summarizes the entire Vedanta or the Vedic knowledge, the conclusion of the Vedas. And so these are Bhakti Sutras, conclusions of Bhakti. And in this section of this book, which you probably don't have access to, this is text 30, Sutra 38 onwards, Narada Muni is talking about the causes of the awakening of Bhakti or devotion. He says, primarily, however, he's described many other things which may be seen to cause Bhakti. But then he says, primarily, however, one develops Bhakti by the mercy of great souls, or by a small drop of the Lord's mercy. So mercy is the main thing. Then he goes on to describe the association of great souls can be attained, but only by the Lord's mercy. Just like we sing every morning at Mangalarti, if you are fortunate to be able to do that, or you do it. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasada yasya prasada nagatika topi. By the mercy of Krishna, one gets a spiritual master. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one gets Krishna. The association of devotees is very rarely obtained. We should search for it. And it's by the mercy of the Lord. The devotees are always present. There are always devotees in this world. It's just that we may not be able to recognize them because of our conditioning. They're not always easily to recognize, and they don't always make themselves easily to be seen. One can attain bhakti either by the association of the Lord's pure devotees or directly by the Lord's mercy. The Lord and his pure devotees are non-different. Yes, the Lord can do anything he likes, but the general way is by the mercy of devotees. Is also described many times in Nectar Devotion, Chaitanya Charitamrita, many times. So then Narada goes on, strive only for the association of pure devotees. One should give up, so that's the hankering. We should really desire that association, because by desire, and this is where the soul comes in. Sometimes we hear the soul is not the doer. In conditioned life, basically speaking, the soul is just maneuvered around by its karma and by the modes of nature, acting according to its conditioning. But the real living entity's free will is this opportunity to take shelter. As Devahuti has come to that point where she's exhausted. And as Queen Kunti said, when one is exhausted, one has to be exhausted with this material world. So we have no mixed desire. When one's desires become unflinching, when one's desires become complete, then one can really take shelter of the pure devotees of the Lord, and one will strive for their association. Whatever it is, if we want to get out of this material, this is the free will of the living entity. Do we want that association or not? Or do we want association of persons who will tell us what we want to be told? Yes, you're doing very well, just carry on, give me some money, I bless you to carry on as you are, or whatever it is. That's not the point. The real point is that so we have to desire for the sadhu to actually release us by their directions, by their strong words. We have to be humble to accept their instructions and apply their instructions. It's one thing to associate with a devotee, but real association with a devotee is to actually follow their instruction. That's how we associate, not just by a physical contact, but by applying their instructions in our lives. That's real sadhu sangha. So we should strive for that association of those devotees, of pure devotees. And that may not be physical all the time, but striving for it in the sense that we should strive to fulfill their desires. Srila Prabhupada says that in the presence of the spiritual master, one may be able to directly associate with him, but in the absence of the spiritual master, one should make the instructions of the spiritual master his life and soul. One worships the instructions of one's spiritual master. One should give up all kinds of degrading. Now we're going to the other side. This verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam third canto, which we're focusing on tonight, describes both sides, the result of association or attachment to devotees and the result of attachment to non-devotees, basically, or devotional service or material service. So one side is to associate favorably with devotees, knowing what it means, another aspect of Sambandha, to understand what it means to associate with devotees. It's not a social club. It's not a back-scratching club. It's a club, if you want to call it at all, club which will smash our material desires. Not a very, most people, you say, will you join my club? What club is it? Oh, my club is one which will smash your material desires. They will not be very interested. That's Lord Balaram. That's what it means. He holds the club to smash our material desires in the form of the spiritual master and the Vaishnavas. And we may not want that quite yet, but he does it in a way which is also in some, certainly you could say, up step by step by step. So it doesn't always feel quite like all of a sudden, boom, step by step, like learning to walk or something. One should give up. So on the other side is one should give up all degrading association. Well, we kind of heard what degrading association. There's so many verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures warning us about various kinds of degrading association. It could be our own minds. Usually it is, if we're not careful. Mind can be friend or enemy. Depends on, in a sense, it's not even the mind. The mind may show various pictures, but it's us, our consciousness, which way we go. Are we going to focus on the bad things in our mind, the material things in our mind, the envious things, the lusty things, whatever it is that come up in our mind, or are we going to focus on the points of Krishna consciousness in our mind? Materially, it'd be good or bad, but ultimately it's spiritual or material. So what do we want to focus on? That's our choice. And that's where the where will the consciousness focus? Will it focus on this, or will it focus? If it focuses on the good things, our mind is the friend, because it's actually helping us. It's that those pictures will come through and purify us, and solve desires, and consciousness then becomes more and more and more and more purified and not interested in the dirty things, because one will get so much more pleasure out of the good things or the spiritual things, let's see. So avoiding that association, and externally, of course, all the time, family members trying to drag us down, society trying to drag us down in their minds, pick us up, material nature attracting our attentions, all kinds of sensual pleasures which come before us, temptations of various kinds, the tendencies which we've developed, the characteristics which we've developed, of pride and envy and so on. All these various factors which drive us to make decisions, drive us in our attachments and detachments, our pleasures and pains, our duality and so on. Are we going to be guided and controlled by all of this or not? That's the question mark. So that type of association will drag us down if we allow ourselves to be affected or controlled by it. Controlled by our lower nature, or whatever we wish to call it, or controlled by others, especially if we associate with persons who are very materially inclined, or very sensually inclined, especially the opposite sex. It captures our consciousness. The picture comes in the mind, and our consciousness becomes captured. Our intelligence becomes bewildered, and we start planning how to satisfy that desire by utilizing our senses in various ways, and we become terribly entangled in this material world. So then he goes on to say, or is that the last verse we're going to read? I'm not sure. Let's see. One more. Then Narada goes on to say, material association is the cause of lust, anger, confusion, forgetfulness, loss of intelligence, and total calamity. In other words, he's basically repeating what Krishna says in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. What's that verse called? That by contemplating the objects of the senses, one becomes attached. From attachment, lust develops. Lust, when it's not fulfilled, particularly anger arises. From anger, then you become bewildered, forgetful, memory, loss of memory, and then one loses one's intelligence and falls down. One makes all the wrong decisions because our consciousness has been captivated by various material objects manifested in the mind. So therefore, Krishna consciousness. So now we're going to go on to, that was Narada Muni. how will this change? How can we actually change it? So there's a beautiful verse. There's a verse in the 5th canto spoken by Judbert, but I'm going to read the one in the 7th canto. And if you have your 7th cantos there, you can go to chapter 5. This is a verse by Prahlad Maharaj. And he's quite bold here. He's talking to his lovely dad. And my demon dad, he calls him sometimes. And there's 2 famous verses spoken before this, text 30 and 31, but time doesn't allow us to get into such detail. Oh, time is on the wall. What is time doing on the wall? Time is everywhere in the material world. So we're going to go to text 32 if you want to look it up, chapter 5, canto 7. Aishamatis tavadarukkramangrim Krishyatyanartha pagamoyadata Mahiya sampadavachobhishekam Nishkinchanananga vinitayava. And here Maharaj says to his dad, unless they smear, well done, that was quick. Unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, completely freed from material contamination, persons very much inclined toward materialistic life cannot be attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, who is glorified for his uncommon activity. Only by becoming Krishna conscious and taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, in this way can one be freed from material contamination. Of course, that didn't inspire Hiranyakashipu in a positive. It inspired him to become extremely angry, as we just heard. This is the result of persons who are very materially attached, or persons who associate with people who become materially attached, or material objects. We may be attached to material objects, like tendencies that we have, attractions that we have. And we could give like mundane music, politics, what else? Sport, mobile, unnecessarily using our mobile phones, being super duper attached to it, more than needed, over endeavoring for material things which are not really necessary. Of course, that may be used in Krishna's service, but sometimes we get overly attached to anything, cars, this thing, that thing, what to speak of the ones we've already mentioned. So many different things may distract our attention. So all these various objects of attachment, they carry the living entity away. So unless we smear, what does it mean? Does it mean we go around all the devotees, every devotee, hold on, just stay still a minute, and you take out a knife and you start scraping the bottom of their feet, filling up a little bucket with dust from everyone's feet, and then you go back home and you rub it all over you? Well, there's a nice sentiment, but that's not the deeper meaning of this. It means we have to be able to absorb ourselves in the association by licking up or lapping up through the ears, and the oral reception. We drink the nectar of Krishna consciousness through the ears. We hear their transcendental instructions, the whatever they're talking, Krishna Katha, whatever it is. We drink it up through the ears. And that goes into also fully engaging ourselves in their service. So that's what it means to smear our body, or unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of Vaishnavas, completely free from material contaminations. This is the secret of becoming purified. In other words, by association with devotees. As we become conditioned by association over many lifetimes with the objects of the senses and persons who are attached to the objects of the senses, we have to become attached to Krishna by associating with devotees. That's the all-important point mentioned there. So now, I won't read the purport, it's very long. Purport to that verse, but it's a really important verse. I recommend you to read it. Many quoted verses in the purport also, which are very valuable to know. You may know them already. For instance, Yasyadeva Prabhati Tadeveta Tago Tashyadeva Kashante Mahatmanaha. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge revealed. If we become attached with the devotees, then Krishna reveals everything through the mercy of the devotees. That's their gifts. So we'll put that one aside. Now we're going to go to, as I said earlier, mostly tonight we'll be looking at Chaitanya Charitamrita. we just have an introductory verse. This is in the first Adi Lila of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, text number 59, chapter 1, wherein Krishnadas, I guess it's Krishnadas Kaviraj speaking, I'm not sure, but whoever it is, one should therefore avoid bad company and associate only with devotees. With their realized instructions, such saints can cut the knot, connecting one with activities unfavorable to devotion service. We need that help because our tendency is often to go to things which are unfavorable, to associate with persons who are critical, negative, this, that, the other, or have ulterior motives and so on and so forth. A tendency may be there, and certainly there's a tendency to go towards, material sense enjoyments of various kinds, or maybe other forms of the modes of nature, laziness, or mundane philanthropy, becoming attracted to, so many different things for the sake of it, and we may become attached to it. Even things which may look good, but like veganism and so on and so forth. Now, many devotees are vegans, but the devotee shouldn't be attached to being a vegan. That may be a tactical move for the sake of preaching on some devotee's case, but it's not a devotional move. It's a material move based on material sentiments, which from the material point of view may look good. It may be based on health sometimes, but generally not. Generally it's based on some material sentiment, some not understanding what is actually the spiritual, what is really spiritual sentiment. And we may be attached to so many different things in this world, just simply, some mundane charity work, or being seen as a nice person, being more attached, like Yudhisthira was, to Dharma than they were to surrendering to Krishna. Like that, we maybe get caught by the mode of goodness. That's another form, let's say, unfavorable, which is unfavorable to devotion service. But in the association of pure devotees, we can get freed of all these various, say, obstacles on the path of pure devotion. And now we're going to go to the main section, which is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita also, and this is in the Madhya Lila. And this chapter, chapter 22, is such an important chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is the instructions of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Sanatana Goswami. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met Sanatana Goswami in Allahabad for 2 months, Allahabad, was it? Where did he meet him? Benares. He met him in Benares. For 2 months he was there, and he preached to him for 2 months. 2 months. Now, in Delhi, Benares is a place where the impersonalists, is the seat of the impersonalists. And there were a few devotees there. Lord Chaitanya went there specifically to enliven those devotees. But whilst he was there, Sanatana Goswami turned. Sanatana Goswami had just escaped from his entanglement in his service to the king, Nawab Hussain Shah in Bengal, and he'd escaped, and he was going to, hopefully, to join Lord Chaitanya. And by Krishna's arrangement, he met Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Benares or Varanasi. And there, the Lord instructed Sanatana Goswami for many long time, for many months or many days on the banks of the river Ganga. And there he instructed him in the process of devotional service. So this is chapter 22. And I'm just going to read a few verses. The whole section is dealing more or less with association of devotees, but I'll just read a few. This is text number 15 of the 22nd chapter. And Lord Chaitanya says, in this way, the conditioned soul becomes the servant of lusty desires. This is for those who are entangled in the material world. Maybe I should hop back one way. Due to this, till we get the foundation to this verse. Due to his being opposed, that means us, opposed to Krishna consciousness, the conditioned soul is punished by the witch of the external energy, Maya. Most we don't see Maya in the bigger picture as a witch, but she acts like a witch because witches, they have these conjuring tricks and they bewilder us by their conjuring tricks. So Maya bewilders us by her conjuring tricks. She causes us to forget our real identity and causes us to identify with this material world as our own, and this body as being me. So this is like her, she's like a witch like that. So He is thus ready to suffer. The living entity is there ready. He may not want to, but he's being prepared to suffer the threefold miseries brought about by the body and mind, inimical behavior of other living beings, and natural disturbances caused by demigods. In this way, the conditioned soul becomes the servant of lusty desires because the living entity has to be attached to something, so it becomes lusty for things. Because we want to enjoy the constitution of the soul is Anandamaya Vyasat. We're always wanting to be pleased. We always want satisfaction. So we're looking for it. Without knowledge of Krishna, without connection with Krishna, what are we going to do? We only have, by Maya's arrangement, we're only aware of this material world to a certain extent. So we look to the material world for satisfaction of our desires, fulfillment of our desires, and we become very much desirous. It's called lust. Lust is you can say, the exact 180-degree opposite of love. It's the same basic principle, but when separated from Krishna, it becomes lust, because we see ourselves as the enjoyer. Love means to see Krishna as the enjoyer. And when these desires are not fulfilled, he becomes a servant of anger and continues to be kicked by the external energy Maya. You get a nice kick. Especially if you become angry, you often get in trouble, and it gets worse and worse. Wandering and wandering throughout the universe, he may by chance get the association of a devotee physician. The word mentioned here by Lord Chaitanya is a devotee physician. Just like when a person's very sick, he may luckily come across somebody who's, knowledge of medicine or whatever, and perhaps by good fortune, he may become cured. So similarly, living entity is wandering aimlessly in this world, not knowing where they're going, maybe suffering, maybe aware of being suffering, but not knowing how to solve it, not knowing how to get out of it, not knowing what to do. Pretty much we would maybe taking shelter of some material religious practice, which only improves your situation in the material world, or something even much worse. Wandering and wandering throughout the universe, he may by chance, get the association of a devotee physician whose instructions, just like a doctor gives medicine, Lord Chaitanya gave medicine too, in H.A.O. Shadi Mayanshi Bharavati. Harinama Mahamantalo Tumi Magi. Lord Chaitanya has brought the Oshadi, the medicine. He's appeared in this age to bring the medicine to cure us of the Bhavarog, of the birth and death that we're presently conditioned and controlled by. He's come to give us the medicine to free us from this disease. The disease is that we're thinking with the body, and that material objects and people around us are objects of our sense gratification. This is the disease, me and mine. So Lord Chaitanya has come to cure us of that disease. So when we get the chance to associate with devotees who are acting on behalf of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, they're devotee physicians. And, sometimes a devotee physician or a material physician has to make a cut. When we have a boil or some problem, sometimes they have to take a knife. The cutting sometimes has to be there to remove the problem. Or one has to give some, maybe not so tasty medicine sometimes to cure the disease. So they come. What is their medicine? What are their gifts? Everyone's praising, naturally. Everyone's praising the doctors and the nurses these last few weeks in the coronavirus thing. But the most praiseworthy persons are those who free us from the material world, the great devotees, and their medicine is the instructions which they give, whose instructions and hymns make the witch of the external energy flee. Maya runs away. This is the special effect of this medicine. A disease is dissipated by proper taking of medicine. Similarly, Maya runs away, or is, let's say, dissipated in the presence, or when the pure devotee's instructions are followed, and Maya can no longer stand, like that. Or when the Sankirtan, the chanting of the holy names, it said when there's loud kirtan, and Kali runs for his life. He doesn't like the loud kirtan. There's got to be quality of kirtan as well. The conditioned soul thus gets into touch with the devotional service of Lord Krishna. And in this way, he can approach nearer and nearer to the Lord by association with the instructions of those pure devotee physicians who come into this world to give that association. We left the spiritual world. There are different schools of thought. Generally, we understand. We left the spiritual world. We didn't want to associate with Krishna. We wanted me to be in the center as the enjoyer. So Krishna has placed us in this material where we see it like that, although we can't really experience it properly. We see it like that. We're the enjoyers, we're the centers. And our whole life is based on that, trying to fulfill our egocentric desires. And the pure devotees come in to give us Krishna's association. They voluntarily come into this world to give us that chance, because it is by association. Without the association of devotees, how on earth are we going to change? We're only going to associate with other persons who are either in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance. And even if they are religiously inclined, their religion is very much in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Usually with quite a bit of ignorance and passion mixed in there too. And although it's a little bit pious, it's still only material, it's mundane. Srimad Bhagavatam, completely Dharma Projita Kutavatra, Paramona Matsavanam Satam. This Srimad Bhagavatam completely rejects all material activities which are materially motivated. And this Bhagavatam is actually only to be experienced by those who are satam, those who are completely freed of all material affinity, non-enders, nirvita trishnas, those who have no more material tendencies, so to speak. In their association, we can actually, our hearts can change. So they're very kind like that. They come into this material world to give that opportunity to us. And it's our choice whether we want to take it or not. We can either misuse the opportunity when we have it or not take it at all. Living entity gets that choice at some point of time. So now we're going to go on a little bit more into the teachings of Lord Chaitanya in this 22nd chapter to text number 35, the 22nd chapter, where Lord Chaitanya says, after some beautiful verses of surrender, he then says, due to bad association, the living entity desires material happiness. And this may be material happiness. A good example of that is even in the Krishna pastimes. If you've ever read the Krishna book, you may have read the story of the Vida gorilla, a very famous gorilla in Krishna Lila, was very powerful gorilla, who literally was very angry and basically attacked because his very close friends, Narakasura and others, were being killed by Krishna, etc. So he was extremely angry. He was a very close friend. He associated with this demon, Narakasura. And he became very demonic. So he became very much angry, and he attacked, and it was Lord Balaram, of course, he attacked Lord Balaram, as it happened to be, Raivatika Mountains. And Lord Balaram finished him off, of course. Initially, he tried to kill Lord Balaram. And the point which we're mentioning is that this Bhavida gorilla was previously one of Lord Ramchandra's assistants in the Battle of Lanka. But he committed an offense to Lakshman. And due to that, later on, he fell into the bad association of Narakasura and began to act demonically. So association, we have to be careful too. If we commit offenses in our devotional service, we may also fall under the impression of bad association and start to act animically again. Offenses are offensive. Turning away from Krishna has placed us in this material world. And even though we've had the chance to associate with pure devotee, if we're not careful, well, if we have some envious mentality towards pure devotee or towards any devotee, in fact, we have to be careful. That may also trigger off this reaction of again falling into bad association. Persons who also like to criticize or fault find or whatever it is, space out into material things. And then gradually we can drift away. Our devotional enthusiasm wanes. We can drift away from the pure path and not actually have any attraction. One of the symptoms of advancing spiritual life is we actually begin to really appreciate the association of devotees who want that association. We're talking here proper association based on what was said earlier, not the mundane type of association, but the association which reminds us of Krishna. And then we're going to go on a little bit more. If such a person actually becomes intelligent, he takes to Krishna consciousness by engaging himself in intense devotional service to Lord Sri Krishna. Due to bad association, we develop material happiness, liberation, or merging into the impersonal aspect. So that's also bad. So we associate with Mayavadis. That's the worst association. And it's very easily done. So many people, you have no idea. And sometimes you have to be a little, okay. I was talking to someone yesterday and they're going, talking of a few things, Amma this and that, so many things. All Mayavadis, complete Mayavad philosophy. But people don't know it. You have to try to gradually bring them around to attraction to Krishna consciousness, explaining Krishna, the real nature of the sadhu, the real nature of the absolute truth. It may take a little time. We have to be very careful not to become compromising in these situations where sometimes, whatever. But we have to be careful in our association. Practically everyone's a Mayavadi in one sense, not a pure Mayavadi, but affected by Mayavad. When Prabhupada was preaching in New York in 1966, he was really going into it against Mayavad philosophy amongst boys and girls who were not initiated. And one of them asked Swamiji, he said, Swamiji, he was wondering, why are you always talking about these, what are they called, Mayavadis or whatever? He was thinking that maybe Swamiji had an argument with some of these people in India and he can't get it off his mind, it's like bugging him, or something like this, some kind of run-in. Didn't know what it was. So Prabhupada said, why are we talking about Mayavadis? He said, because you are a Mayavadi. You are a Mayavadi. Because we're still seeing ourselves in the center. Mayavadis see themselves, they're proud, they see themselves in the center, they don't see anyone else as their authority. The Maya influence of Mayavad philosophy. Then if we're spiritually inclined, then the Mayavadi means our intention is to merge or to become one with God. This is the most dangerous. Lord Chaitanya said, this is the most dangerous, more than even material association, is associating with this philosophy or with persons who are proposing or propounding this philosophy, etc. Or he engages in even mystic yoga is considered here to be, bad association. Those who are mystic yogis were attached to, various cities and so on, flying in the skies, very attractive. Entering so small, so big, reading people's minds, creating things, bringing things from far distance. Oh, how nice it would be. Mango, boom, mango, yes. God, gold, here you go, gold. God, he must be God. And people are easy food like this. This is also bad association. If such a person actually becomes intelligent, if he takes to Krishna consciousness by engaging himself in intense devotional service to Lord Krishna, requires the association of the devotees to evoke that actual realistic change. I'm going to jump forward a few verses now in this 22nd chapter. Here we go. Text number 47. Krishna, Lord Chaitanya said, is situated in everyone's heart as Chaitaguru, the spiritual master within. When he is kind to some fortunate conditioned soul, he personally gives one lessons to progress in devotional service, instructing the person as the super soul within and the spiritual master without. Fortunate conditioned soul, one who takes advantage of the opportunity when they get it to associate with devotees. And there are maybe a few other factors there. They want to let go of the material world, but basically they're taking advantage of the association with pure devotee. They're the fortunate souls. And then we go on. Oh, my Lord, oh, infallible supreme person, when a person wandering throughout the universes becomes eligible for liberation from material existence, we heard about the eligibility in the case of Devahuti, say, he gets an opportunity to associate with devotees or to hear from devotees. When he associates with devotees, his attraction for you is awakened. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the highest goal of the Supreme Devotees and the Lord of the universe. It's very similar to that other verse, Brahmanda Brahmate Kom Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai Bhakti Lata Bija. After wandering this material world for many, many lifetimes, by good fortune one gets the chance, and by the grace of Krishna, one gets the chance to associate with a devotee. And by the mercy of the devotee, one gets the seed of devotional service planted in one's heart. And this is good fortune, having this opportunity to meet a devotee. But it says here, when a person wandering through the universe becomes eligible, when we're sufficiently exhausted. by our material experiences. And Sadhu Krishna's mercy is the other one. And he can, as if he wishes, just wake a living entity up. But generally, it's when the living entity is actually ready. I've had enough of this material world. I've had enough. That can also be evoked by the power of a devotee. It's like Narada Muni. When Magari the hunter had the association of Narada Muni, Magari the hunter certainly wasn't seeming to be in a position of material exhaustion. But by the most amazing, powerful association of Narada Muni, he woke up. So similarly in our case, in many cases, because many devotees ask Prabhupada this question, where is our piety? In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Yesham Tvantapatam Papam Jananam Punyakarmanam. The one who has acted piously in previous lives and his sinful reactions have been eradicated and is free from the duality of delusion can engage in devotional service with determination. So the way you ask Prabhupada, well, I don't have any determination. Excuse me, I don't have any piety. A very impious life. How is it I've got the good fortune like this? Prabhupada said, I've created you good fortune. This is the other angle. It's not about only becoming qualified. It's just having the good fortune of just taking, somehow or another, taking shelter of the devotees. The devotees' desire is to deliver all conditioned souls, even though they don't want to be delivered. So by their powerful preaching, their powerful association, they can even awaken, even in a highly covered heart, a devotional spirit can be awoken there. That's like Narada did in the heart of Magari. Of course, he gave him a vision of his karmic reactions for his sinful activities. But Magari accepted and surrendered to Narada, and this was delivered, was purified. But similarly, we've got this opportunity by the grace of Srila Prabhupada to become pure for whatever our past may be. We may not have been so eligible in one sense, but by the mercy of the pure devotee, the power of his desire and his purity, that purity is, you can say, just like a very powerful light. You can sometimes put your hand up and you have a powerful light. You can see the light practically coming through the hand. It's so powerful. So we go on to another beautiful verse. Next is text number 49. By associating with the devotee, one awakens his faith in devotional service to Krishna. And this is the devotees have unflinching faith. Yashadeva Parabhaktir Tadevi Titaguru, we heard this now. They have this unflinching faith in Krishna. And by associating with them, we can also develop that unflinching faith. Because of devotional service, one's dormant love for Krishna awakens, and thus one's material conditional existence comes to an end. Whereas our faith in spirit arises, our faith in matter, of course it becomes spiritualized, you could say, but our faith in material pursuit diminishes. And next verse we're going to read is text 51. I'll read 50 and 51. Text 50. Somehow or another, if one is attracted to talks about me and has faith in the instructions I have set forth in the Bhagavad Gita, and if one is actually detached from material things or material existence, his dormant love for me will be awakened by devotional service. Generally speaking, our slowness in making progress is because we've still got many attachments to things separate from Krishna or not favorable for devotional service, whereas material things, they're like anchors in the ground. We can row and row and row, and as long as the anchor's in the ground, we're not making much progress. So you have to let those anchors out. So both sides there, we have to hear about Krishna. We also have to let go of all the other stuff, which is really not favorable. Unless one is favored by a pure devotee, he cannot attain the platform of devotional service. The favor of a pure devotee is so important. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj says this is the key, the gateway. It's like if you're going through a door, you have to have a key to go through it. It's the key. Service to the devotees is the gateway, but the key to open the gate is the mercy of the pure devotee. To say nothing of Krishna Bhakti, one cannot even be relieved from the bondage of material existence without that mercy, or Krishna's mercy coming through the pure devotee or directly. We can't get out of this material world by any means unless we get the mercy of Krishna. It may be we're after Brahmajyoti or Brahman realization, but without the mercy of Krishna, we can't attain that. It's all by Krishna's mercy. What to speak of to attain bhakti, which is rarely obtained, really is by the mercy of the pure devotee. And that has no material cause as such. You could say indirectly when a person is actually fatigued with this material sojourners endeavor to try to enjoy this world. Then when they get the opportunity, it's not a positive thing like good looks or good knowledge or something. Oh, here's the verse by King Rahugana. Look at that. Text number 52. O King, verse by Jud Bharat. O King Rahugana, without taking upon one's head the dust from the lotus feet of a pure devotee, a Mahajana or Mahatma, one cannot attain devotional service. It means placing one's head at the lotus feet of the pure devotee, surrendering oneself in all humility. Obey, obey, Sansis. Obey. We obey the pure devotee of the Lord, obey Sansis. One cannot attain devotional service without that. Devotional service is not possible to attain simply by undergoing severe austerity and penance. It doesn't work. We can't do it by making up our own process. By gorgeously worshipping the deity or by strictly following the rules and regulations of the sannyas or grihastha order, nor by studying the Vedas, submerging oneself in water, or exposing oneself to fire or scorching sunlight. It can't be obtained by any of these methods. It's only by the mercy of the pure devotee. We have to take that mercy. Prabhupada said the mercy is there, we just have to take it. And that mercy is when we have to surrender ourselves at the lotus feet of the pure devotee, kindly engage me in your service. Or as Prabhupada said, his only important thing, only prayer, how can I serve you? Prabhupada said to his own guru. His only thing he ever said was important was, how can I serve you? To his spiritual master, please engage me. Next verse, this is text 53. Unless human society accepts the dust of the lotus feet of great Mahatmas, devotees who have nothing to do with material possessions, mankind cannot turn its attention to the lotus feet of Krishna. Those lotus feet vanquish all the unwanted, miserable conditions of material life. Everyone's trying to eradicate the miseries of life, but this is how they can all be eradicated. One stop surrender. At the lotus feet of a pure devotee can vanquish, because our material sojourn, the cause of our being in the material world will come to an end. The verdict of all revealed scriptures is that by even a moment's association, very famous verse, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Koi, Navamatra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Koi. By a moment's association with a pure devotee, one can attain all success just by one moment. Many verses like this in the Shastra. And there's another one. Tulyama levanapi nisvargam napunarbhavam bhagavat sangi sangasya matyanam kimutashishaha. The value of a moment's association with the devotee of the Lord cannot even be compared to the attainment of heavenly planets or liberation from matter. What to speak of worldly benedictions in the form of material prosperity, which is for those who are meant for death. So all the wealth in the universe, all the knowledge, all the piety of the universe is insignificant in comparison to a moment's association with the body. None of those other things can relieve us of this material condition. But a moment's association with the body is the beginning of the end of our sojourn. So it's the most fortunate thing we can get, is the association of devotees who help us to connect with and progress towards the lotus feet of Krishna. Jump forward a little bit. Amazing verses, and then we'll be closing shortly.
1 hour and a half.
Huh?
1 hour and a half is
Gone. Yeah, we're almost there. We're almost there. Here we go. Text 83. Text 83, chapter 22, Madhya-lila. The root cause, Lord Chaitanya says, the root cause means like basically the original cause almost, or at least the foundation cause. The root cause of devotional service to Lord Krishna is association with advanced devotees. Even when one's dormant love for Krishna awakens, association with devotees is still most essential. Even if we're on a realized platform, even if we've awoken our love of God. We did mention the other day, even in the case of Maharaj Bharat, how he made the big error when faced with that slight dilemma of the little fawn, baby deer, and he made a certain decision there, and that was it wasn't the decision so much, but the fault was that he did not inquire from a spiritual master. He did not associate with devotees to discuss and decide upon his dilemma. And thus that was the cause of his fall down. And here we go, text 84. Oh my Lord, this is from Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 51. Who is this speaking? I can't remember. Oh my Lord, oh infallible Supreme Person, when a person wandering throughout the universes becomes eligible for liberation from material existence, he gets an opportunity to associate with devotees. When he associates with devotees, his attraction for you is awakened. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the highest goal of the Supreme Devotees and the Lord of the universe. I think this is Rukmini, when Krishna was in Dwarka, but I may be wrong, but I think it was Rukmini. O devotees, O you who are free from all sins, let me inquire from you about that which is supremely auspicious for all living entities. Association with a pure devotee for even half a moment in this material world is the greatest treasure for human society. That's from the 11th canto, chapter 2, text 30. And we're going to leave the next one because that's the verse we're going to be dealing with in a few days. We'll move on to text 87 and 88. A Vaishnava should always avoid the association of ordinary people. Common people are very much materially attached, especially to women. Vaishnava should also avoid the company of those who are not devotees of Lord Krishna. That's a famous verse, the Satsanga Tyage Vaishnavachara, welcomed by Lord Chaitanya. He said one time when he was asked, what is the quality or characteristic of a devotee? He quoted this verse, Satsanga Tyage Vaishnavachara, Sri Sangyeka Sadhu Krishna Bhakti Jar. One should avoid the association of ordinary people. Doesn't mean we don't see them, we don't talk to them, we don't interact, but minimize the mundane association. In other words, we have to associate in terms of our duties in life or a daily life, sometimes socially. If you're married, you have a certain position in society. Minimize and not indulge in, let's say, enjoying the so-called pleasures of material association. Be very careful. And the last verse I'm going to read now, I think it is, last verse. This is text 88 and 90. By association with worldly people, one becomes devoid of truthfulness, cleanliness, mercy, gravity, spiritual intelligence, shyness, austerity, fame, forgiveness, control of the mind, control of the senses, fortune, and all opportunities. We're talking from the real platform, not necessarily from the relative platform here. But all spiritual qualities, all good qualities, all real cleanliness, all real mercy, gravity, all lost. One should not at any time associate with a coarse fool who is bereft of the knowledge of self-realization and is no more than a toy animal in the hands of a woman. The illusion and bondage that accrue to a man from attachment to any other object are not as complete as that resulting from association with women or with men too attached to women. In other words, people who are sensually inclined, no matter what their sex is. But people who are too much attached to this bodily idea of enjoying the body as self and trying to exploit the bodies of others. So we're finishing there on this very important subject of association or attachment to the objects of the senses and how we can transfer our attachment to the self-realized souls. We'll hear more about that in the next few days, and a lot of the topics or related subjects we've not mentioned tonight because they will come up in the next few days. At the current begin, Kirtan. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for this lecture. Excuse me, but I need to disconnect earlier. Oh, someone's gone.
It's just private.
Not a question, it's just a statement.
There's no questions.
Any questions, please? Anyone like to type in a question, you're most welcome. Usually have an avalanche of questions. Even say, maybe the lockdown's coming to an end and all the answers have come. There's no more. I don't know, is the lockdown's coming to an end where you are? Most places, I think it's slowing down now. People are starting getting back to normal. They're starting to be themselves again. Huh? even devotees now, we can go out and enjoy ourselves. Don't have to be locked up in our rooms anymore. Terrible, isn't it? You're in your room, you have to read and chant, watch lectures online, and all kinds of austere things like that. No, you know, what to do. What is a Mayavadi? How to recognize it? Mayavadi. Mm-hmm. Mayavadis, they basically, well, there's different ways of seeing it. We've mentioned some of the goals of the Mayavadi to merge into the impersonal Brahmajyoti. Their goal is they see themselves as the center, they see themselves as God, they see everything as the Brahman as the oneness, they see everything as one. A Mayavadi sees everything as Maya in this world, even Krishna is Maya, illusion. Form is illusion, relationship is illusion, karma is in the kind of an illusion, everything is like an illusion to them. They don't see any particular, and they see everything as an illusion, as false. They see everything as false. But there's a degree of truth in that, in as much as everything is temporary and it's not our permanent constitutional nature. But they deny, Mayavadis deny rasa, they deny the constitutional nature of the soul, which is to render service. They consider that this loving exchange is only a feature of this material world. It's an illusory feature, born of ignorance in this world, or whatever mode it's in. And they see the whole material world as just like a false dream, which doesn't really have any substantial existence whatsoever. And there's nothing beyond that except for the all-pervasive spiritual oneness, the Brahman. So how do you recognize somebody who's a Mayavadi? Well, you probably have to see what their philosophy is or what they're saying. You can't always tell by dress. You can hear from others, but usually it's when they start to expose themselves through their philosophy. And almost in every case, such statements as, that where everything is God, there's only, there's no, there's no supreme person as such. Every single thing that exists is the all-pervasive oneness. We're all God, I'm God. We're all God, it's all one. There is no such thing as activity on the platform of self-realization. There's no material activity, but there is spiritual activity on the spiritual plane, but they deny that. There's spiritual love, but they deny that. There's relationships, but they deny that. There are planets with unlimited variety, but they deny that. Only in this dream-like illusion do these apparent manifestations or expressions take place. So they consider that a dream or an illusion. Goodness knows how it has come about in the first place, but that's their concept, is that from the all-pervasive oneness, where there is no variegation whatsoever, somehow or other this dream has arisen. Whereas, of course, the Vaishnavas, they understand that this material world is a perverted, temporary, perverted reflection of the spiritual realm, where in the spiritual realm, there is pure love, there are pure relationships, there's pure activities, there's pure form. Everything exists there in its constitutional purity. But the Mayavadis deny that. And that's why it's said to be the greatest, you could say, ill fortune to be affected, because it denies one that opportunity to develop one's rasa or relationship with Krishna, one's loving relationship. As we see in this material, people are hankering for love, they are hankering for, relationships, etc. It's natural, it's coming from within the very conscious living entity itself. But we become extremely frustrated in this world. Some people want to finish their material lives, but the Mayavadis basically want to finish their spiritual lives. There is no personality, basically, independent. I mean, there is, but it's one pervasive, all-pervasive personality, you could say, the all-pervasive Brahman. But the personality by nature, as we heard from tonight's verse, is to be attached to something or another. So it's denying the nature of the soul to have that contact or that attachment or that relationship. It's just in the material world, we're looking in the wrong place, we're looking in the wrong direction. A matter of channeling or turning our attachment towards Krishna through the media of the self-realized souls or the great devotees of the Lord. So unless one gets that chance, the good chances are that we're going to meet, because if we're fried with this material world, if we realize there's places and place where there's, almost, what's the point? Working hard all your life and dying. It seems like fruitless endeavor almost for many people. So they generally become attracted to that because, they haven't actually experienced bhakti. They haven't experienced actual ananda or real pleasure. Only the experience of negativity is not enough. One has to have the experience of positivity. Without the positive experience, the tendency will be to be attracted or drawn to the Mayavad philosophy. Especially, you've got this laziness comes in, spiritual laziness, where, you don't have to do anything. It's just like, bow, finish. Devotional service is action, that's for sure. It certainly isn't like there's no, sometimes there may be relationship challenges, but there's a deep pleasure within. The soul waking up to a relationship with Krishna. Can we recognize advanced devotees? How can we remember? Because it's kind of the opposite to the previous one. There's some more before that, I think. Oh, yeah. Okay. How can someone have unflinching faith in he or her? Okay. In a devotee or spiritual master who doesn't follow the strict rules and regulations of devotion service. How this person saves his unflinching faith without the protection of strictly following the instruction of his spiritual master. Well, I can see this from two angles, I would say. Taking into account the verse which was quoted in tonight's verse from the 9th chapter of Abhijit that even though one may engage in activities abominable, those who are rightly situated are still considered to be saintly. They're rightly situated means their enthusiasm in devotion, service, and unflinching. Well, Prabhupada describes this as an accidental fall down, not a systematic or planned fall down, or let's say a kind of like an ongoing parallel in their devotional service. Where it's like almost like adopted as another aspect of which I can't remember. Occasionally, a pure devotee may, unknowingly or accidentally, but then they immediately rectify themselves again. And sometimes the example is given on the moon. There may be a few pock marks on the moon, but the moon remains ever effulgent. So, and the other aspect of this is the devotee, one who's actually an advanced devotee, because you could say in the life of a greatly pure devotee, such things may not be there, but for those who may not be Nityasiddhas, sometimes we're coming from a platform of material plane to the platform of pure devotional service. There may be a little trace element of our past. Those who are Nityasiddhas, those who are coming from the spiritual world, there is no such trace. And if ever there appears to be such a trace, it's only to show us by example that even though we have these material conditionings, one can still take to devotional service. But for those who are coming to the platform of pure devotional service, they're very determined. There may be an occasional slip on every path. Sometimes we slip, but we get up and carry on determinedly in a repentant mood. We can give an example of Maharaj Parikshit. Again, it's to show us by example in his case, but taking that aside, when he became angry at Kaushika Rishi, the great Muni, was meditating, who did not recognize Maharaj Parikshit's arrival. Parikshit Maharaj became angry, placed a dead snake around his neck, and then went away. And now this is ordained by Krishna in his case, but occasionally we may be affected by past behavior. But what does a devotee do? Maharaj Parikshit showed by wonderful example, totally repentant. He wasn't trying to defend himself. He wasn't trying to, Ambarish Maharaj, the same thing. They don't try to defend themselves. They feel themselves, I'm a 41, I am guilty. Please punish me as you feel fit. This is the mood of an advanced devotee, even though he may have done something which would not seem to be correct according to normal circumstances. But that is their mood. They feel very repentant, and sometimes if we're a little weaker, very helpless, and we just cry to Krishna, I'm so sinful, please punish me, please rectify me, whatever it may be. This is a symptom of one who is genuinely a sadhu, who's engaged enthusiastically, determinedly in devotional service. And such a person should be highly respected, highly respected. they're an advanced stage of devotional service, even if there is an occasional blemish. But if it's an ongoing thing which is hidden and which is like almost justified sometimes, and searching for opportunities to associate with similar persons or to indulge in those activities, that's another thing altogether. That can either be somebody who's not very advanced or somebody who is in the mood of a cheater, one or the other. Where are we? Service to gross materialists. Could you please explain how devotees can get caught into this unknowingly? Unknowingly. Knowingly, it's quite easy, of course, if you know the symptoms of what is materialistic, what is materialistic and what is not. Knowingly, it wouldn't be so difficult. Unknowingly, devotees, most people when they come are very somewhat naive, somewhat sort of very innocent. And everyone's a devotee, and sometimes we get caught up hearing devotees who somehow or another got affected by the modes of nature for whatever reason, unfortunately, and start to become critical or say, "Oh, you're wasting your time. Don't worry. Just take it easy. Just be yourself. Just chant Hare Krishna when you like. You don't live in the temple. Don't listen to what they say. You can't become Krishna conscious in this life. It's going to take millions of lifetimes. Just try to be pious, whatever." Or we may associate with people from other, as we mentioned just now, the Mayavadi philosophy. Sometimes our preachers can be quite effective, or other religious practices which have a materially motivated basis, campaigning and so on and so forth. Or we may associate with persons who've got, mundane kind of piety. They seem to be really nice people, very kind, and so on and so forth from the material perspective. And then we look at devotee, he doesn't seem to be so kind. He's a bit grumpy and what have you. We may get affected by that. Maybe getting so many different angles of that, which may affect us. It's made to look, Maya makes it look very nice, but it's very shallow. It's based on karma, it's based on material factors, and it's temporary in nature. But we may be attracted and drawn by it due to our past, probably due to our past samskaras or associations with it. We again get drawn back to it by that association, our past, especially our past conditioning often gets, we get drawn back into it when we associate with persons who have that type of mentality also. I was reading this morning, Prabhupada was sad to hear that some of his disciples had gone back to marijuana. And Prabhupada said it's simply due to bad association. Persons who were also saying, you can chant Hare Krishna and take marijuana, whatever it was. So by that type of association, one can get drawn away again from the pure path. That's why it's very important to protect ourselves and to read carefully, hear carefully from Srila Prabhupada and from devotees who are sincerely following Srila Prabhupada to their best capacity at least. What's the next one?
How can we recognize advanced devotees?
Where?
How can we recognize advanced
This one here?
devotees? Yeah.
Advanced devotees, well, they're always engaged in devotional service according to Krishna. They're constantly engaged in devotional service, taking shelter of their spiritual master, chanting the holy names, and constantly engaged in devotional service, day and night. Nothing will disturb them. It's not like some, even if there is apparent mistake, which may appear to be judged as a mistake, they carry on unflinchingly. Even if there is some difficulty on the path, they carry on unflinchingly. You can take the example of Srila Prabhupada. We can't compare or imitate that. No way. But you can see that tendency in devotees, that they're not going to stop, come what may. They're unflinching in their dedication, their faith in Srila Prabhupada or their spiritual masters. In this way, they're completely absorbed in how to spread Krishna consciousness around the world. In other places, Prabhupada said they're mad for Krishna. They're always mad, searching for Krishna. That may be translated into being always thinking of how I can engage in service. They never stop serving. It's not like, oh my goodness, how much do I have to do? I need a break. Even if they do need a break from physically one particular service, that means just another type of service. They're always engaged in service, day and night, constantly. Next one. How do we deal with our material body family members? That's a lot in one sentence there, isn't it? All of them together there. It's basically, how do we deal with it? Well, we try to engage everything in Krishna service. We have to accept that's which favorable. Sometimes we take Mayavadis, we may not be able to. You have to avoid it. You have to avoid that association with the material body. We try to engage it. With family members, we try to engage them. If they're not very engageable, then we socially we have to do whatever is necessary, but it's not more than necessary. Try to give them prasadam. We try to give everyone prasadam, even Mayavadis and everybody. We try to give them prasadam. We try to give Lord Chaitanya. I was looking at the chapter today also, and Lord Chaitanya was in Benares at the same time. Next time. Anyway, he was in Benares twice, but one of the times he delivered all these sannyasis in Benares. He delivered them. It was at the same time. He delivered the Mayavadi sannyasis by his intense humility, by his qualities. We deal with all these things by cultivating Vaishnava qualities, by developing the qualities. Our family members will be impressed by good qualities of Vaishnava. They're extraordinary. Yes, it will impress the family. If they're not impressed with that, then they're probably quite in the mode of ignorance. And the Mayavadis, the same thing, with very, very good qualities. But at the same time, we have to be very careful. We are not Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we are trying to become servants of the servant's servant. So you have to be very careful about that association. Generally avoid it. Avoid reading about it. We've all done that already, anyway. We don't need to keep doing it. We've all associated with it already. So we don't need to keep doing it. If that's what we want, that's another thing. But to try to protect that devotional creeper, which is rather tender, we have to be careful. It's like an animal comes along, eats it or destroys it if we're not careful. So we have to be careful by our association. So sometimes you have to move away, and sometimes you have to be a little careful. And sometimes you can, by qualities, you can interact and bring people closer to Krishna. But whatever it is, we should try to develop good qualities of Vaishnava. We should try to be strong in our spiritual practices. We should associate nicely, favorably with devotees and inquire about how to progress in spiritual life. And with our body, we try to engage it. That's what sadhana means, to engage our body, our mind, our words in Krishna's service. Next one. Must we avoid devotees with bad character? Must we? Well, you may not be able to, but again, with respect, but not being indulged in. Show respect to all living entities, but we don't indulge in their association. We have the example, for instance, in Gaur Leela, when Lord Chaitanya was in Jagannath Puri with many of his associates, amongst them one of the primary ones was Gadadhar Pandit, and he was very soft and gentle natured. And there was one, Balavabhata, is also a devotee, but he had a different angle of devotional service, and he was insisting on enforcing his take on the Srimad Bhagavatam to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who rejected his commentary because he was proud. Whatever the commentary was, Balavabhata was manifesting some pride at that time. So Lord Chaitanya rejected hearing it. So Balavabhata forced it onto Gadadhar Pandit. He was very humble and submissive. Balavabhata practically accepted Gadadhar like his spiritual master. So he wanted to, please hear my commentary. And Gadadhar Pandit, being soft and very like that type of nature, heard it, but he was feeling extremely bad because Lord Chaitanya Srup Damodar, they rejected it. So he was very bad, so he felt very repentant. So sometimes this may happen. We get this association, but then we feel very, like, did I do the right thing or not? But always respect should be there in that situation. We should definitely not, indulge in it. We should try to avoid it as much as possible and look for the good, as we heard just now. Strive for the association of pure devotees. And if we're sincere at heart, then Krishna will fulfill our desires. And you'll learn a lesson. We'll learn a lesson. And then we'll become more determined to get the association of pure devotees. Sometimes we do kind of like get caught like that. It's very easy to get caught. Sometimes devotees who have this kind of angle of things try to enforce themselves upon us. So you have to be very careful. Try if you can't cutting out the tongue means changing the subject. Like Jayananda Prabhu. As soon as someone started criticizing somebody, he would say, "Oh, what a great devotee they are. They have such wonderful qualities, don't they?" And immediately they go away. They're not interested in somebody who doesn't want to hear what they've got to say. They'll go away to somewhere else and find somebody to indulge in sense enjoyment with. So to see that, I remember when I was in Malaysia, one godbrother there, he was amazing, Ram Sharan Prabhu, Malaysian devotee, joined in England, proper disciple. He would do that every time, someone say complaining about something. He would immediately start saying, "Do you mean so and so? Oh, isn't he wonderful? That devotee is such a nice devotee. Do you know what he did yesterday? Oh, so wonderful. What do you? Yeah, he's a great devotee." And then they go away. What's the use of talking of these things? Or indulging in sensuality? Hey, have a look at this. Is it Krishna? Oh, look, here. Oh, isn't that wonderful? I've also got something nice to show you. Here, look at this picture of Krishna. Listen to this verse about Krishna. Like that, Trying to, it's a nice way or a gentle way of, and then they're not, oh, that's really nice, but I'm pretty busy right now. I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye. And off they go. They don't really want to hear about Krishna. They want to hear about themselves or about their own impression of life. So it's not so valuable, that association. Try to avoid it if we can by purifying it if we can. And if we haven't, if we're too weak, just suddenly your phone rings. Oh, I'm sorry, I've got to go off for a phone call. Whatever you try to get out of there. Jayananda Prabhu would never listen to criticism of the devotee. He would just quit straight like that. Immediately, he would leave. Hare Krishna. What about Advaitacharya? Was he also Advaita philosophy? Well, Advaitacharya is the Supreme Lord. So in one way he is Advaita, he is the Supreme One. Yes and no. I mean, no entirely. But at the same time, sometimes he would do that for various reasons. He was preaching Mayapur philosophy one time purposely to get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya beat him and beat him and beat him like anything. And he was so happy. No, but Advaitacharya is the greatest. He's the Supreme Lord, but he's in the mood of the greatest servitor of the Lord. It's like, anyway, that's his mood. So, of course, Sachi Mata, she chastised him in that way, isn't it? You're breaking things up. You're not going to bring your family together. You're breaking it. She chastised him. He would do all these, behaving in different ways to invoke various kinds of loving exchanges, teaching various lessons and so on. But he was the greatest devotee. He was a great associate of Haridas Thakur. Together they prayed for Lord Chaitanya to come into this world. And he relished, he was lamenting that there are no Vaishnavas in this world. Everyone around me is a Mayavadi or a caste Brahmana, Sahajya. There is no pure devotees. And then Haridas came along. He was very happy to get his association like that. So yes, he is actually the greatest devotee of the Lord. So if he has to preach sometimes Mayavad philosophy, that's like Shankaracharya on behalf of the Lord had to preach Mayavad philosophy. He's not a Mayavadi. He's a pure devotee of the Lord, but he had to preach Mayavad philosophy. That was his role. Buddha, he had to preach Buddhism. That was his role. The Buddhist, as we know it, an atheist or whatever you call it, Shunyavad, he's a form of Krishna. Powered by Krishna, but that was his role. So sometimes they may manifest such characteristics, but in the heart, that's all part of their service to Krishna, fulfilling Krishna's will, or the will of the living entities. But ultimately, their only desire is to please Krishna. Because in Advaitacharya's case, he's the Supreme Person. He's in the mood of a devotee, in the mood of service to Lord Chaitanya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So thank you all very much. We're going to have a little kirtan and finish off there. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare
Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Gauranga, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo! Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo! Hare Krishna, Gauranga, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Gauranga, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Go Premanande, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Hari Nama Sankirtanam ki jai. Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you all very much. Saturday morning, 10 o'clock, France time. We should be able to come back online, Krishna willing. Rasikananda Prabhu will keep you informed of what the schedule is, I hope. Thank you, Rasikananda, for hosting tonight. Thank you all for coming and joining us, giving us your association. It's wonderful to be with you all. And please take the holy name to your heart, embrace the holy name, and respect all the Vaishnavas. We respect everyone, no matter what their condition. We just have to learn. You can learn from Nectar of Instruction also. There's, I think it's fifth verse. I think so. Maybe fifth or sixth verse in Nectar of Instruction. Different ways to associate. But we'll be hearing that a little bit more over the next few days. Many of the questions today were more related to the next verses. But not to worry. We'll go forward, and hopefully by Krishna's grace, we'll be able to associate more favorably and more pleasingly and be able to progress in our spiritual life. Thank you all very much. Now, let's say Hari Bol to everyone. Hare Krishna. Hari Bol! Oh, you're all on mute.
Plus d'amis, plus rien. Parce que voilà, tourner le dos aux matérialistes. Eh bien, moi j'étais désespérée. Je disais, Krishna, mais montre-toi, fais-moi quelque chose. Je crois que j'avais dû vous l'expliquer. Je sors de la maison, il y avait un coucou sur le toit.